Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Empowerment Project podcast by Andrea Bosco and Dr. Shar. I am Andrea
Hey,
Bosco,
I'm
and we
Dr.
have
Charray. Hi, everyone.
great. So today's topic is a great, really good one. I think we say that all the time, but we are going to talk about leadership. Leadership from the perspective of how the Empowerment Project sees leadership. And that really is leading from the inside and then outward. And I'll just quickly explain a little bit why we thought this was a good topic for today, and just sort of what's been coming up for us in our lives. So, as most of you may or may not know, Dr. Shar and I are both parents. We're both moms. I have two children. I have a 15-year-old, and my son is almost 11. And so I've been at it for a little while. I'm not going to say I'm an expert in any way, shape, or form. But what I notice the most about parenting, right? So if we were to compare parenting to leadership, it's not very far off, right? Leadership or parenting is like leading little people, especially for the first few years of their life. You're just like leading them, and then hopefully trying to influence them to follow your lead and follow your lessons or rules or whatever that is. So it's very I think it's the biggest leadership role I've ever had to take in my life. But for some of you listening, you might be leaders of companies, you might be leaders of teams, whether that's corporately or even personally, if you're on a sports team or whatnot. But there's so many areas in our life that we lead. But what we firmly believe in is that if we don't learn how to lead ourselves and know who we are before trying to lead others, it generally doesn't work out. And so I'll tell you a quick story about parenting in recent months, and how it just really hit home for me, understanding that it's so important that I continue to lead in my own life and to lead by example, because that is truly the best way. And so with parenting and, with kids, and for all you parents out there, like we're always trying to teach our kids good habits. We're trying to, tell them to, whether it's eat healthy or be kind or, do their homework and, be polite or whatever it is. Now, in it's not lost on me that if I'm trying to tell my children to do all these things, I need to be doing them myself, even more so, right? Because they're watching me. We are a mirror to each other. And it was really apparent this weekend when when my son came to me and he said, "Mom, I want to start making smoothie bowls." And I was like, okay. Now, listen, I try to eat healthy. My lifestyle is quite health based. And so I've tried to tell my kids, come on, let's have a smoothie together. And, they roll their eyes, and they're not really interested. Every once in a while, maybe I can make them something, and it's literally just like banana and ice and a little bit of milk. But to get any like hearty nutrients in it was not happening. Now, I could have given up. I could have just said they're a lost cause. But what I continue to do is lead by example. I make my smoothies in the morning, or I make my healthy meals, or whatever it is. And I knew eventually they're going to come around. So when my son came to me and said, "I want to start making smoothie bowls," he was showing me a TikTok of this guy who makes them, and he makes them look really appetizing and all that stuff. And heck, social media can be good for something, I guess. And so he was he was influenced in that sense, but he also knew that it was part of what I did. He knew we had most of the ingredients. We did go out and get some extra fruit that he wanted. And lo and behold, he's eating a smoothie bowl after, dinner for a dessert and in the morning. And it's only been a few days, but I sat back and I thought, okay, like this is really the secret, right? Of just keep working on yourself as a leader. Keep doing the things that you know are improving your daily life, and your children or even your team members or whatever it is will come around. They really will. And I truly firmly believe that. And Shar, I know you've also done the same thing. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your parenting journey and how that falls in for you?
Well, I actually want to first start by saying that we're by no means trying to guilt or shame anybody if they, make smoothie bowls or not, or,
Exactly.
have a tough time, getting breakfast on the table, or getting their kids to eat, because I know that kids can be challenging at different times in our life. And again, not just for people that have kids, right? So, um, but I agree with you. I think it really is an inside out job. And so I don't know if I've shared this story or not, but it was a story about when Alicia was born. And my oldest, when she was born, and when the midwife gave me Alicia, the first
Mhm.
things I said to her were, I hope you're nothing like me. Like, I hope you're smart and you're beautiful and you're going to be confident. And, those were all the things that I did not even know. I didn't even know how to feel those things. So, I mean, these are the first words I uttered to my child. It's like I, I put this pressure, I cursed her. It was just awful, right? Because again, I'm not those things. So I want you to be those things. But then it's like, well, how do you teach a child to be those things if you can't be the example? Like, how do they learn, right? Children learn by mimicking their parents. That's proven science. We know that from all the work and all the readings we've done on the brain in general, and how children live in a slower brain wave state, and almost like they're in a hypnotic state. It's called a hypnoidal state, and they pick up all their programs and beliefs and their ideas and how to conduct themselves, not only in the house but in the world, by what they see with us. So for me, when that pivotal moment came where I was like, okay, I can't help Alicia because I don't know those things. I needed to figure out how to know those things. So that's where, for me, the leading by example came, where I started having to really tap into some of those spaces that I didn't want to go. Those really dark spaces, those really insecure spaces. Why was I insecure? Who did I feel did this to me? Why do I have a victim mentality? Like, I really had to dive into all of those spaces. So when you talk about the inside out job, this is what it becomes, right? It becomes,
Mhm.
well, and I heard this really beautiful thing the other day. Um, this woman, again, on TikTok, I was on TikTok or a reel or whatever, and she was saying that so many parents are willing to die for their kids. Like, they would jump in front of a train, they would take a bullet for their kids, they would die for their kids. But are they willing to live for their kids?
Mhm.
So for me, like, at first I was just like, when she was saying, would you, anyone would die for their kids? I'm like, yeah, I would absolutely die for my kids. But then when she said, but would you live for your kids? And for me, that meant, hey, are you going inside and cleaning up some of that clutter? Are you going inside and cleaning up some of those old belief systems and those things that are holding you back from being the best version of yourself? Because that's the hard work, right?
Mhm.
It's not
Mhm.
always pretty when you decide to try to move on this path and on this journey. It gets ugly sometimes, and you and I know that. Like, I've been on the floor crying, swimming in my tears and snot, because I'm overcoming, you know, a dark part of me, and I'm trying to process some of those emotions. So it's like, are you willing to do that? Are you willing to do that? And I think And it doesn't matter. This is not just about parenting. This is about you learning to be the best leader that you can for yourself. And so you're right, it is an inside job. I mean, and we can talk about all the things that we learn about leadership, like leadership styles and leadership characteristics. Like I just pulled this up on the Harvard Business Review, and like these are some of the leadership styles that they talk about. A coercive leadership style, which entails demanding immediate compliance. Okay, so that's one. There's six of them. Number two, authoritative leadership style, which is about mobilizing people toward a vision. Pace setting leadership style, which involves expecting excellence and self direction. Four, affiliative leadership style, which centers around building emotional bonds. Five, democratic leadership style, which involves creating consensus. And then six is coaching leadership style, which focuses on developing people for the future. But it's so funny because there's nothing wrong with these leadership styles, and they all need to be applied to our lives and the way that we lead at some point in time in our life.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
the point is that if we don't figure out our own stuff, and if we don't start really diving into that leadership, into, leading us within and changing our mindset or mastering our mindset, then all of this is just a waste, right? And I think
Hmm.
another thing too, a big one, I mean, you just talked about parenting, so I'm just going to throw this in there. I mean, I know for me, one of my biggest learning experiences as a parent and implementing leadership by example in my house has been to, number one, be accountable for what I'm saying. And if I'm not accountable, my kids call me out on it, to be like, okay, you know what, you're right. You called me out on it. You're right. I slipped and I'm sorry. And let me readjust. Let me try to figure that out again. So not only holding myself accountable, but also apologizing when I am being called out um, for something that I said for them to do, but then I don't end up doing. And that whole, like, I can't be a hypocrite in my house. If I'm going to,
Hmm.
like you said, like if you're going to teach your kids to eat well, you can't sit there on the couch with a bag of chips every night. I mean,
Hmm.
there's nothing wrong with that. Everyone enjoys chips and cookies and treats. I'm not saying that. But I'm just saying that if that's a really big part of what you want to create in the house, or the kind of habits that you want to create for your kids, um, that's, eating healthy is, and that's your thing. Yeah, then you're going to have to lead by example. And that
Hmm.
comes with everything in our
Yeah,
life.
and I
Sorry, go
think
ahead.
the what you touch upon about apologizing, not being hypocritical, and being able to be called out on your stuff is essentially being vulnerable,
Yeah.
right? And vulnerability is a massive personality, excuse me, leadership trait.
Yeah.
It's a personality trait too, but it's a massive leadership trait that I don't think a lot of people realize.
Mhm.
And because especially as parents, we want our kids to follow our rules, and we want to be that role model for them. So if we mess up, a lot of times the last thing we want to do is admit it
Yeah.
because then it's like, shoot, now they're not going to think I'm this like incredible, all-knowing, all good doing person. But is that really what you want to show your kid, that you never make a mistake and
Yeah.
that everything you do is perfect? Because that's also showing them that behavior too, that it's not okay to fail, that it's
Mhm.
not okay to make a mistake, that it's not okay to learn from a wrongdoing.
Yeah.
So owning up to it, apologizing, and I'll agree. I 100% admit I have a hard time doing this too. But saying, yeah, shoot, that's my bad. I'll totally do better next time. Because then again, it's showing them that they can own up to their stuff too. And because I know, especially with my little guy, he likes to, lie, right? He like, no, no, I didn't do that. And I'm like, come on, honey. just admit it. I'm not going to get mad. Just tell me if you did this, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, these little white lies, like, no, I didn't do that, whatever. But as soon as I give him permission to just be honest, it's okay. You made a mistake. You don't have to, we're not gonna, the world isn't gonna blow up. Just admit it. I could see, like, the ease in him. And hopefully eventually he'll stop lying and just come clean on things.
Right.
Right. So absolutely. And I think the other thing too is, you mentioned how, like, we're leading by example, and we need to show our kids what we expect from them. And from a parenting perspective, it makes a whole bunch of sense, and I think a lot of us can agree and understand that. But even from, like, a professional leadership standpoint, for anyone who's leading a group, whether you're in management, VP, CEO, whatever it is, they are also looking at you for that example. And we've seen it, right, Shar? How many
Mhm.
times have we been in companies? So we've been
Yeah.
very blessed to share our work in a lot of corporate settings. And I'll tell you, it's the offices that the leaders show up that we see the best culture, the best camaraderie, the least drama, right? Because the leaders are showing up to our talks. And a lot of times, our presentations are around stress management, they're around resiliency. So, a lot of these emotional intelligent pieces. And so, what happens is, most of them are virtual, but we do go in person a lot too. And they put them out to the whole group, and we expect dozens, maybe even hundreds of people to show up. And then who shows up? Maybe a handful of people.
Hmm.
No leaders, no managers are in the room. So what is that showing? It's teaching the employees that, A, you can't take time away from your desk to do this. And it's like, most of them are less than an hour,
Hmm.
right? So it's showing them that this information is not important enough to show up to,
Hmm.
right? So that happens. And then you see the interaction is low. Like,
Hmm.
people aren't showing up. Whereas in the companies where we've gone, which are, I have to say, not the majority, I'm going
Hmm.
to be honest,
Yeah.
is when those managers and CEOs, they show up to the room, you're like, wow. And you can just feel the difference in the room, because
Hmm.
everyone has been given permission now. Step away from your desk,
Hmm.
go on do not disturb.
Hmm.
If your boss can do it, you can do it. So it's very similar, right,
Hmm.
to a household, right? If your parents can do it, your parents can show up, your parents can take care of themselves, your parents can own up to their mistakes, then so will your kids. So
Hmm.
it works the same way, right?
Mhm. And I think, like I was saying earlier, I mean, there are times when different type of leadership styles are important. Like, I can't tell you how many times my kids will say, "But why?" And I'll be like, "Okay, you know what? Because I said so. It just needs to be done. Period."
For
Like,
sure.
and that's it. The answer is no. Or, and again, it's for whatever reason, whatever it is that we're talking about, whatever needs to be done. Sometimes it's just no, right?
Yeah.
And that's okay. Like, there has to be, like, I feel,
Authoritarian.
yeah,
There's no
well, the
democracy.
yeah, exactly, the authoritarian leadership stuff, but I'm not, then this is what I mean, like, I think there needs to be, like, these leadership styles are amazing because you can be using them at different times, but the thing is that, when you do the work, when you actually tap in and you master your mindset and you understand who you are as an individual and you do all of that great, uh, uh, you know, um, that great work on yourself, then you know when you can apply those things. Because here's the other really very important um, characteristics. You mentioned vulnerability, but one of my favorite is listening. So this
Mhm.
is what I feel like I even need to get better at doing, especially with my kids, because sometimes you get so wrapped up in, you get into like autopilot mode, and you just have to get things done, get things done, get things done. And then I forget to be present, and I forget to listen. So I have to stop myself, and I'm like, okay, I always say, use your ears and your mouth in proportion. God gave you two ears and one mouth, so use them in proportion. So I really have to stop myself, and I have to learn. And I'm getting better at this, but to listen more and talk less, right? So really listen to them and process what they're saying. And again, this doesn't just, it's not just with my kids, it's even when I'm with my patients, because the thing is that I have, especially with my patients, I have a wealth of knowledge in the health and wellness sphere. I've been doing this for over 24 years now. So, I've been practicing chiropractic and doing the energy healing and the coaching for such a long time that it's really easy to say, oh, you need to do A, B, and C. But sometimes it's just better to be quiet and listen, right? Process what they're saying. And then, so this is the other cool thing too, which I learned when I was in chiropractic college, is the Socratic method. Well, when they tell me certain things, instead of offering them advice, just say, well, why do you think it's happening? What are you feeling? So open-ended W questions like, what do you think is happening? Why do you think it's happening? How do you think you can change this? And then what happens is the patient or my children or whoever I'm having a discussion with, my coaching client, they have to actually self-reflect. Like they actually have to go in and do some intuitive digging. And often they have the answer, like they know the answer. I mean, you know this yourself, even when you've coached, Andrea. Like they
Mhm.
often know the answer. They just want someone else to tell them. But we don't need to tell them because they already have the answer. So the Socratic method, I find, is very helpful because it puts them in back in the hot seat and really asks of them to dig deeper into their thought processes, into their feelings, into their intuition to come up with an answer, right? So I remember like when my kids, they used to come home, they're, oh, I did great on a test. Look at my test. And I'm like, and initially I'd be like, oh my God, that's awesome. Give me a high five. And I still do that once in a while, but most of the time, what I'll say to them is, well, how are you feeling? Like,
Mhm.
verbalize your feelings. I can see the joy in your face. And how are you feeling? Oh, I feel really great. I studied really hard. I did A, B, and C, and look at the results. And so again, it's like, how are you feeling? I don't want them to validate their feelings all the time because I feel good about what they've done. Like I want them to
Yeah.
feel some sense of validation themselves. And again, that doesn't happen all the time when, when they're, when they're playing sports or, my middle one plays basketball and, of course you're in the stands and you're cheering like, yes, go, that's amazing. But at the end of the game, it's always like, okay, well, how do you think you did? Like, how are you feeling? And they might have lost the game, like, but she's like, I felt amazing. It was such a great game. We bonded as a team, even though I might be feeling a little disappointment that they lost another game. But
Mhm.
again, I shouldn't be putting that on them, right?
Mhm.
I have to really allow them to come out and talk about what they're feeling from an intuitive point of view because we all have it. We all have this intuition. We've just forgot how to tap into it.
Yeah. And I think as parents too, we almost like try to give our kids their own like give our kids language. Like
Mhm,
so for example, if you say, how you feeling? And I don't know about you, but I get a lot of like fine,
mhm,
good.
mhm,
And I'm thinking in my head, like, can I just get another word? Can I just
mhm,
please get
mhm,
another word?
mhm, mhm,
And so we tend to say, okay, are you feeling frustrated? Are you feeling anxious? Like, so I feel, I guess for me, it's like I try to like give them language, but at the same time, like you said, you need to stop using your mouth and just listen. And even if it's just saying, you know what, if you don't have the words right now, just let me know later. We can come back to this at another time and give them time to think about it. Because listen, the adolescent and teenage brains are not fully developed. We
Mhm.
know this from our research, right? 25 years old is when the brain fully develops.
Mhm.
And most of what is working
Mhm.
in the brain or kind of in control, right? If you're
Mhm.
thinking of the control panel, I
Mhm.
mean, Inside Out was like an incredible movie to
Mhm.
explain the
Mhm.
way the teenager adolescent brain works, or even just brains in general. But if you're thinking who's in the driver's seat, it's the amygdala, which is the fight, flight, freeze center of the brain, which is constantly assessing for danger. And
Mhm.
that part of the brain is very important for all people, but in the developing brain it is very active, right? It's overreactive. So that's why sometimes they just don't have the words, because maybe they're in freeze, or maybe
Mhm.
they yell and they're like, oh, just shut up, don't ask me, again how I
Mhm.
feel. They're in the fight. Right? So it's giving them time to process it, because it doesn't mean that the other part, like, which is the prefrontal cortex, which is more of that rational logical space,
Mhm.
it doesn't mean
Mhm.
that's not available to them. It just means that it's going to take longer for them to get into that part and process their feelings.
Mhm.
So giving them a little bit of time, coming back to it.
Mhm.
And again, it comes from us, right? Like if we're not going to be patient, if we're not going to be okay with not knowing how they're feeling,
Mhm.
right? Because them answering that question is not just, for them, it's for us too, right? We
Mhm.
want to make sure they're okay,
Yeah.
right? Because we don't want our kids to feel any pain or any worry, right? Like that is so our type of parenting right now.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
it's listen, I think we've come a long way with parenting. If anyone is a Gen X out there, or
Mhm.
even if we have some baby boomers listening, even some like older
Millennials.
millennials,
Yeah.
right? You were raised probably quite differently.
Mhm.
Um, most, if you're in North America, a lot of families are immigrants. They came from other parts of the world that had very different cultures and very different ways of parenting. There was very little emotional intelligence or emotional support from parents. And again, we're not blaming or shaming our amazing parents. That's all they knew. They were
Yeah.
in survival mode.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
what we've learned from that experience is to be more emotionally available for our children. But what sometimes tends to happen is we swing so far to that area is that we want to smother and we want to just hover over our kids and just make sure that they're not feeling any worry or any upset. And it's like, let me give you every single resource available, which is wonderful to do, but sometimes they need to sit in it. They need to sit in that discomfort,
Mhm.
right? We talked about getting out of our comfort zone last week, right? So they need to learn how to sit in that discomfort too and
Mhm.
understand how to kind of climb out of it, knowing that you're there to support them,
Right.
right? It's not like you disassociate and you're like, good riddance, I'll be in my room, good luck with that. But it's just, listen, if you don't have the words right now, if you're not feeling up to it, I'll be in my room. Please come see me. Or, the next day, have you thought a little bit more about it? How do you feel? Like just little ways to know that you're still there, but you're not like hovering,
You
which we
know,
can
it
typically do.
reminds me, there's two things I want to say about that. Number one is I think a lot of us were raised, especially Gen X's, when I talk to Gen X's, um, a lot of them, a lot of us were raised where our parents really weren't emotionally available for us. And so as a result, we tend to overgive to our kids, right? Like
Mhm.
we want to be there for every single thing, and we don't want them to feel bad because we grew up feeling bad our entire life, something along those lines.
Yeah.
But I think again, you can take this pendulum, and it's gone from one extreme to the other. So the way that I found that I could bring the pendulum for it to settle kind of in the middle is by understanding that I have to give my kids or whoever it is, even a patient, I have to give them space to process their emotions, right?
Mhm.
And just like I had to find space to process my own, because there's so much learning in it, right? Like it's really important for them to feel whatever it is they're feeling, the anger, the resentment, the frustration is so important for them to feel it. And then remember, it's an emotion. It's coming in, it's trying to teach you something. So it's always that question, well, how is this helping me? What is this teaching me? Where is this coming from? Right? So all of those questions that we want to teach our kids or our patients or our team members, whether at work or a sports team, like really ask them, well, where's that coming from? Right? Where's it coming from? And they might not know the answer right away, and that's okay. That's why you take
Mhm.
the time to go away and process everything. But the other thing it reminds me of is I remember listening to Lisa Damour. She's a
Mhm.
parenting, she does a lot of stuff on parenting and
It's
parenting
wonderful.
teens. She's amazing. And what she said that like as something that you can do when you're with your kids or your team members or your patient, or again, this is something that I found was universal, but she said pretend you're a journalist, like ask questions, and then it's like you're writing down the responses, like you're paying such close attention to how this individual is responding in this situation, and you're almost able to repeat them back to them. Okay, so you're telling me that in this moment that you are feeling frustrated. Okay, and again, it might not be exactly that way. She might have explained it a little differently, but just it's like you're a news reporter, so you're asking questions to get a better feel of the situation. And
Mhm.
then like it's almost like you're not mirroring, but you're also playing it back to the person, saying, okay, I understand that you're feeling frustrated right now, I understand that you're feeling angry now right now, I understand that you're feeling resentful because of the amount of work, or because you didn't do well in a test, or because you're not getting as better as better as fast as you thought, like. But it's like repeating things back to them, almost like parroting them, like mirroring what they're saying,
Mhm.
which helps them feel, number one, like they're really being heard, right? That like
Mhm.
you're really listening to what they're saying, which again, this is what people want. People just want to be heard. They want to know that you're listening to what they're saying. They want to know that you're present. But then the second thing also is, as we're validating how they're feeling secure enough in their feelings and of what's coming up for them, that it's almost like it's no, it's not almost, it is giving them permission to feel that way and process those emotions, hopefully in a healthy, safe way, whether that's a way in their room or a way at their desk or, back at home. But it's giving them safety and permission to sit in that feeling, in those emotions. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I
She's really
100%.
amazing. Like that, Lisa Damour, my gosh.
She's very
That was
good.
a
I'd give her
very
a follow.
powerful, that was such a powerful video I watched of hers.
I agree. I know exactly the one you're talking about. And so the other question we often get, so we do a lot of parent engagement seminars as well. And a lot of times, especially, so the parents we usually present to are parents of teenagers or, adolescents. Um, and usually what we get is, how do I get my kid off of social media? How
Mhm.
do I get my kid off their phone? How do I get my kid off of video games? How do I, and it's this constant worry that, what our children are being exposed to is damaging, and what can I do to change it?
Mhm.
And we completely we completely get that. We completely understand that it is a concern because it's definitely changed the dynamics of childhood in comparison to how we grew up,
Mhm.
right? We had the television and our parents thought, you would say like, your brain is going to rot if you sit in front of the television. Now I'm pretty sure there's a lot of parents out there that would just wish our kids would sit and watch a movie or a television show
Mhm.
instead of just,
Scrolling.
brainlessly scrolling,
Mm.
right? So so the way we present it, and I want to say this specifically for parents, but even from a leadership role, right? Like being leaders and understanding what's happening with the people we're leading. And first of all is like knowledge, right? So get to know the platforms that your kids are on,
Mhm.
right? And a lot of us, we're not tech savvy and we don't want to know about it. And it's like we just stick our head in the sand. But if you have a concern about it, you need to understand what it's all about. So
Mhm.
what is TikTok? What do you do on it? What's the algorithm like? What is Instagram or what is Snap? Right? Have your kids explain it to you, because the
Mhm.
last thing kids want to do is listen to somebody tell them to stop doing something that doesn't even know what it's about,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Like that's the last thing they want to hear. So ask your kid, tell me about, and I ask my daughter all the time, like, what do you do on Snap? Like show it to me. I want to know what you guys do. And so it gives me a better understanding about the platform. So knowledge, right? You need to know know the product, know what is happening,
Yeah.
what these people are in front of. And then the other thing is discernment and teaching your children about discernment on the internet.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of younger generations, they kind of know this already
Mhm.
because they've grown up with it,
Mhm.
right? Like a lot of the young Gen Zs, this is all they've ever known. Like they
Mhm.
call them the iPad kids because they
Mhm.
literally had an iPad in their face at 18 months old with the
Mhm.
little farm animals,
Mhm.
right? So for them, they can actually discern quite easily and understand what's real, what's not real, even what's AI.
Yeah,
Like
I
there's
was gonna
so much
say.
AI out there now.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
like my kids are the one who tells me, like I'll show them a video and they'll be like, Mom, that's all AI, you know that, right? And I'll be like, oh,
Yeah.
okay. Tell me
I
more. Like, tell
yeah.
me more about AI. What else do you know about it? So having those like open and honest conversations with them around, especially, and I hate to say, I mean, I think it happens with boys too, but in the female category, the beauty category, this whole thing around, I mean, there's 8-year-olds shopping at Sephora. And I'm just like, holy gosh, go play with a doll,
Mhm.
please. Like,
Mhm.
go get your littlest pet shops,
Mhm.
like, and go play with them. But
Mhm.
anyway, that's for another day. But I mean, at like talking, like I talk to my daughter all the time about, what do you see out there? Like what are they trying to sell you? And do you know what's in that product? Why do you want to use it? Let's have these open, honest conversations so we can discern from what's real and what you're just simply being influenced to purchase.
But you know what,
And
Andrea?
again, like, and we are like the gatekeeper, right? Especially if
Yeah.
we're buying the stuff. Like if it's
Right.
on our dollar, you can exercise that authoritarian power. And this is a huge thing because, sorry, I'll let you definitely jump in, but a huge thing is parents are like, but they tell me everybody else has it. And I feel bad that my child doesn't have it because all her other friends have it or all his other friends have. Well, then you need to ask yourself, what about that bothers you, right?
Mhm.
Why is it so hard for you to see your kid be left out? If that's what you think they are, they're
Mhm.
left out because they don't have the latest and greatest skincare or makeup item or whatever, fill in the blank. So, what about that situation bothers you the most? Does
Mhm.
it trigger something in you,
Mhm.
like when you were a kid? Oh, I never had the nicest running shoes and I would get made fun of, or whatever it is, right? So, you need to ask yourself. And then, listen, I'm not saying you say no to everything. I'm not saying that you're like, no, 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 none of this, none of this. Like, maybe that's your style. And if you're okay with it, fine. But it's setting those boundaries and being like, okay, let's try out like one of these things. Let's see how it goes. And then we'll try out the other thing. It's not about just like dumping it all. Sure, here, take my credit card and go crazy. And not having that conversation around it because our kids need boundaries and
Yeah.
we're the ones that set them for
Right.
them.
Right.
They're never going to set their own boundaries, right?
They're
So
pushing
we need
boundaries.
they're pushing them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're learning to push them. So we need to help set their boundary. Otherwise, they're going to run away with it and we need to be that safe place for them to come to test them out and for us to be like, no, 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 you're going too far now,
Right.
right? So that's a huge thing is asking yourself, what is uncomfortable about this situation for me that I
Mhm.
need to deal with
Mhm.
myself
Mhm.
versus, just giving my kid everything they want.
Yeah, no, you know what? You said everything that I was gonna say. I just wanted to
So,
make sure that they were said, but you did. But you know what I was gonna say? Um, I was at Sephora this past weekend, and again, like, it's
I
after Christmas, and Sephora is packed to the brim, okay, with 8-year-old and 10-year-old girls, and so, I remember a parent was asking me about this, and, it was the same thing around buying makeup and skincare and whatever. And again, remember, if you're controlling the if you're in charge of the money, then maybe you're setting a budget for your child. Like, just say, okay,
Mhm.
because you don't want them to feel completely excluded from everything, which I totally get, because that's a hard space for a child to be in.
Mhm.
So maybe that happy medium is setting a budget, saying, okay, listen, you know what? Your budget on a monthly basis is, $15, let's say. So that means that, you know, if you want that drunk elephant thing,
Mhm.
which again, right? Like, make sure you're reading all the ingredients and making sure that it's appropriate for your child's skin, especially because they've got beautiful, tender new skin at that
Ugh,
age. Maybe you're
please.
saying, okay, well, then that means in 3 months you can buy. Like, again, it's setting a budget. And it's the same thing with the social media stuff, right? Maybe you're turning off the Wi-Fi, or maybe you're turning off access to their phones at a certain time. Like, I know that we used to do that in our house. I mean, my kids are older now, and they use their phones and obviously tech for different things, but that's what we would do. We would collect phones, we would collect iPads, we would just set boundaries. And again, I'm not shaming or making any parent feel guilty. It was just something that worked. I mean, my husband's in tech, so he knew how to turn certain things off and on at certain times. Don't ask me, because
Mhm.
I wouldn't be able
Mhm.
to tell you any of that stuff. But anyways, it's just about understanding that you're the parent, and structure and boundaries are important for our children, because funny enough, they thrive on them. We don't realize that they do, but they completely thrive in situations where boundaries are created. And I know, like, in my house, and a conversation we had with a parent at one of these places, is we said, okay, set a small boundary, like set a small fence, for your kids, and they're allowed to do everything in that fence, and what those boundaries are and what they're allowed to do in that fence is determined by you. And when you feel like they have been able to comply, and they're responsible, and they're thriving in what they have, feel free to open up that boundary a little bit more, open up that fence a little bit more, so they have a little bit more room to play. There are other things that they need to comply to. And once they feel comfortable and safe, then again, open it up a little bit more. So instead of like just saying, okay, it's a free for all, like, start off small, right? And make sure that they can do well in the environment and the structure and the boundaries that you've created for them. Because again, like you said, they thrive in them. They need the boundaries, um, and they'll thrive. They will absolutely thrive.
Exactly. And again, I have to go back to that whole setting the example. So, if we're spending 6 hours a day on social media ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they see us scroll, 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 and, you know, that's obviously giving them permission to do the same. So are we setting boundaries on ourselves?
Yeah.
Are we even saying like, hey, you know what, guys, I find I'm doing like I'm brainlessly scrolling. I'm gonna turn my phone off at this time, or I'm not going to use social media after this time, or
Yeah.
whatever, just announcing it. And it's not, again, they may not change their behavior around it, but you are setting that example. And the other thing is we ask this to parents too, is if you don't want them to be on their phone, what do you want them to do?
Yeah.
Like, what are you asking them to do besides that? Like, and I get it. The way we were raised was go figure it out. Go outside, be creative, read a book. Like, we weren't even given options. We were just told to like
Mhm.
go away, right? Now, the world is different. We can try to do that to our kids. We can try to tell them go figure it out, and maybe some of them will, or for a short period of time they will do it. But at the end of the day, they're in a different culture. They need a little bit more support and a little bit more guidance, right? And wouldn't we have liked that too, right? We
Mhm.
would have liked that too. But our parents, they didn't know any better, and that's fine. But we do know better, right?
Yeah.
Because we're working on ourselves more.
Mhm.
So, what is it that we're offering them to do otherwise?
Yeah.
So, for for a teenager, right? Are you maybe getting them a gym membership? Right? Maybe saying, hey, let's go to the gym together, or let's go to a yoga class together,
Mhm.
or let's go for a walk together. And again, you're going to get hit with resistance at first, but you keep introducing it, you keep offering it. If it's a younger child, like my 11-year-old, I say, all right, let's play a board game. Come on, grab out. He loves chess. He's an incredible chess player. I don't even know. I can't even play with him because it's over in 3 moves. But anyway, I sit there and I'm like, all right, let's play some chess. And unfortunately or fortunately, it means that we have to put in some effort as a parent. We
Mhm.
got to get off our asses and we got to get out there, especially with our younger kids, and do stuff with them. Take them to the park, take them for a walk, take them for a bike ride, get them out. I'm not saying that you fill up your entire day doing these things, but show them that you're interested in actively participating in a different activity. That doesn't mean they're sitting in front of their phone,
Mhm.
and even with my teenagers. So I'll just end on this last little story, and Shar, if you have anything else to share, because I
Mhm.
think we can go into this conversation. And what I would love to do too is even bring some of our kids on to talk about how they feel about their social media
Yeah.
and about their phones, and to get their perspective, because I think it would be really, really good for them and for us. But as part of a Christmas gift, my daughter got a nail kit. Right. So just different brushes that you can do nails. She's very into getting her nails done. Although a boundary that I've set for her is that I am not paying for her to get her nails done every 4 to 6 weeks. It's an expensive luxury to have. And I also personally don't think it's very good for your nails, but that's me. So what she decided to do was she's going to learn how to do her own, just the regular polish. But you do need some of the fancier brushes to do some of the designs.
Mhm. Mhm.
So it was like last week, and I had had a long day, and all I wanted to do was sit in my room with my book and my cup of tea and not be bothered. But lo and behold, it's like 7:30 and my daughter comes in my room and she's like, "Mom, can I do your nails? I want to test out my brushes."
Mhm.
And for a split second, I was like, "Oh, no, please. I'm so tired. I just want to sit here and I couldn't sit in my bed to do it. I needed to get up, go in the bathroom. And so, but I said, no, I like this is important to her and I want to support her in this. So I got up, went into the cold bathroom, sat on the hard toilet seat, and stuck my hands out there. And because she's new at doing it, it took her time, right? So I was there for a solid, 45 minutes to an hour. But it was such a great time, even for us to have a conversation while she's doing it, for her to learn. And at the end of the day, I was happy that I pushed through that urge to just say, no, not
Mhm.
tonight.
Mhm.
And I did it. And I got so many compliments on my cute little nails that she did
Mhm.
for me. And I really can't wait for her to do them again. And she can't wait. Like she's now saying to me, Mom, the next time I'm going to do this and I'm going to put this pattern on it. Like, what do you think? And I say, yeah, 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 let's try it out. So it's a way that she's expressing her creativity. It's a way for us to spend time together. And heck, she's not on her phone, which is
Mhm.
such a beautiful thing, right? So think about ways that you can get involved a little bit more. And again, it doesn't have to be every single night of the week, even one night a week.
Mhm.
What can you do or suggest to get them out of that sort of brain rot that can happen online? And not all of it's bad, but just to limit a little bit.
Yeah, in our house, our new thing is Justin actually built a computer. My youngest built a computer
Oh my gosh, it's amazing.
with his dad over the holidays, and so he's been on the computer and he's been doing YouTube shorts. And I'm like,
Mm.
okay, well, tell me about what you're watching. And it's just like it's things like dad jokes and
Yeah.
you know, little funny things. I mean, nothing, nothing that. Yeah, his algorithm is pretty clean right now. But what I was going to say was the other day he came to me and he's like, I don't feel good. And I said, what do you mean? He's like, I've been on, and I didn't realize this at the time, but he's like, I've been watching YouTube reels for the last, hour or 2 hours, whatever it was that he said. And I said, and he's like, and I feel really bad. Like my brain doesn't feel good. I said, okay, well, what are you going to do about it? And he said, you know what, Mom, I think I just really need to limit my time on these YouTube
Mhm.
reels. I said, okay. And these YouTube shorts. I said, okay. And I said, and you know what? I will too. I said, so now at a certain time every night, we both shut down. Like, because I also like to, for me, YouTube reels and shorts and it's for me, it's dinner ideas. I'm like, oh, that's a great dinner idea. That's a great dinner. My kids get bored. I cook a lot of my food from scratch. So I'm like, oh, what a great idea. What a great idea. So that's what I do. But then, you can also get sucked into like watching these people cook and ASMR, chopping vegetables. Like, it all sounds so good and calming. So I told him I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to limit it. In the evenings, I get half an hour to do whatever I need to do, look for recipes, enjoy my shorts, all that good stuff. And then it's off. Then it's
Mhm.
off. Just leave it in case someone wants to call me or text me. And that's it.
Yeah,
So that's what I'm doing at my
exactly.
house. We'll see if it works and how long it lasts, but I think it's worth a try. And it's a good start, I think, to the new year, especially because he's recognizing something. So again, I feel like I need to support his decision by also limiting myself. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. So, you know what? This has like been one of our longest podcasts because I
Yeah.
think we could really talk for hours on this topic. I know we've sort of made it very heavily focused on parenting, but this is my world, this is your world, this is a lot of our listeners' world. So
Mhm.
um, I think we should definitely continue this conversation again. If anyone has any questions about this, please reach out or anything you want us to talk about specifically
Mhm.
in the parenting space, let us know. Listen, we're not experts. We are just like you. We're learning along the way. We're seeing what works, what doesn't work, and we're sharing our experiences. So thank you so much for being here. We hope you've learned something, and we will see you soon.
Take care, everyone.